Good evening again. This is Dr. Marco with the Naked Truth, America and the World. Tonight's topic that I would like to talk about here is this Dallas and America, the ambush sniper shooting of the police officers there. I was in hopes of talking the next time about this congressional hearing they had where they had the FBI director on and discussion of that. It does tie into this in some ways, I have no doubt, but as I watch the news broadcasts and everything concerning this, I'm frankly, in some sense, not surprised, and in some sense, very surprised at all the reporting that's going on. We had the two shootings, police officer involved shootings in two other different states, and those shootings are questionable as to the validity, and as they say in law enforcement, whether it was a good shoot or a bad shoot. And we see what we see as far as it goes with the videos that were shown of both these incidents. And we could do like a lot of other people, we could rush to judgment and we could claim that, yes, this shows everything in detail, and this is how it was, and make that assumption. But that's not really how things work, is it? Or at least it's not supposed to be. And we rush to it, even though we know that there's going to be an investigation. There are certain people, certain groups that would rush to that judgment. They won't wait for an investigation to be performed. They won't wait for the investigation to even start before they start raising hell, protesting, and making outrageous claims that they know exactly what went on as if they were there and witnessed and heard everything. And I can assure you that I can show you 50 different pictures, 20 different videos about various things, and stop them at a certain point, and you could make many assumptions about what you just saw and heard, either in the pictures, photos, the videos. And then I could go back and show you that what you were looking at was not in fact what you thought you saw. There's many ways that this occurs. It's just part of the human brain, how it works. Our perceptions. 5 people may not see even the same thing and interpret it 5 different ways. That's just a reality of being a human being. And the proper, responsible process here is to let the investigation go on before you jump to any conclusions, because if it was you on the other side of that situation, you would want to have the benefit of the doubt. You would want to be proven guilty before you were condemned. More likely you'd want to be proven innocent before you were condemned. But no one's waiting. No one wants to offer someone else the same thing that they would want in response to any given situation. Are all police officers, deputies, highway patrolmen, etc., are they all, pure as the driven snow and have the best intentions? No, they are not. But the percentage, by pure statistical standards, the percentage is not that high at all. It's very minor. The percentage of officers that have racial bias or profiling or whatever you want to call it. And they also have a percentage of officers that won't necessarily make the right decisions and choices at various times. Times of fear, times of panic, times of uncertainty. Don't confuse someone's panic and stupidity as racial hatred. Again, you're making an assumption. You're jumping to a conclusion that you don't have any basis of fact on. That's why you let investigations play out. We see all these protests going on, and we see groups of people like Black Lives Matter, who, in my opinion, instigate and create a atmosphere that is much worse. They create more hatred and they create more problems than they ever solve. If any of the people in this group think that they're accomplishing something good, then they're either lying or they're deluding themselves. One or the other. Groups like this and phrases that are being utilized in some of these situations should not only not be allowed, but that should be illegal, even though I'm a firm believer in freedom of speech. Even that does have some limitations. If you're going to speak inflammatory ways, things like pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Those kind of statements shouldn't be allowed, even under freedom of speech, because that is hate speech, and it's directed at a particular group. That's racial. So the very people doing this are the same ones that are screaming racial, and they're doing the very same thing that proves that they're racial in the opposite direction. That doesn't fix a damn thing. That just makes everything worse. There are many contributing factors to why these incidences are going on. But they're making it look and appear like all black men are targeted by all white police officers. Now, first off, in the Dallas shootings, and my deepest sympathy goes out to every one of those people, their families, their friends who've lost them. One or more of them weren't even white. They were Hispanic. So, therefore, you're already ruining the entire thing right there and blowing the idea of it completely out of the water. Many factors lead to all these things. Many factors lead to these problems on both sides. You're talking about the numbers of black men killed by any white police officer in the country, and I don't want to minimize the effect of this. I don't want to minimize the severity of any one being killed at all in any situation. I don't want to minimize that, but statistically, if you look at the numbers, it is not like it is being depicted. If you want to depict something, at least do it accurately. fairly, justly. Not like it's widespread, rampant throughout the country, because it's not. There are many other reasons why these problems are being instigated by groups like this and other groups, talked about like this, by the people that talk about them in such ways that is not of help. There's no point to it. And it's not accurate and true. This is not rampant throughout the country. If you look at it percentage-wise, it does not match. How many white men have been killed by black officers in the United States, in America? I don't know that number. Do you? I find it veritably impossible that that never occurs. It has to occur. But no one talks about that. I don't see any protests or riots based on the fact that a black officer killed a white person. So what? This incident in Texas was not a legally started issue. This incident in Texas was simply a murder, a sniper-style attack on the officers. One was simply a transit officer. One or two, I'm not sure, I apologize for that, one or two were Hispanic, not even white. The individual stated himself that he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He was upset about the two recent law enforcement shootings. He was upset at white people, hated white people, wanted to kill white people. He wanted to especially kill white police officers. None of this is helpful, yet I'm sure that there are a few out there who are cheering this on, which turns my stomach to even think about. But I'm sure it goes on, just as it's shown in some of the protests and riots that occur. You don't wait for due process, yet you would want due process if the shoe was on the other foot. That's hypocritical. I've grown up in this country and I've seen how things have gone. I remember the 60s very well, and the 70s, and the changes that occurred, and racial tensions that existed at the time, and so forth. We're sitting here in the year 2016. 2016. Now, African Americans are in every facet of life in the entire country. You have the same jobs as anyone else has. You are politicians, you are lawyers, you are judges, you are famous movie actors, you are famous singers, you're the president. Many things, everything. Nothing is denied. And even though you're in every aspect of American life, the claim still goes on constantly about racial this and racial that. And so many times when anything comes up, the first thing out of some people, and I'm not talking about everyone, so don't even go there. The first thing that comes up so many times, and I've confronted this myself, oh, you're that way because I'm black. No. Maybe they're that way because you're being an ass. Or your personality. Did that ever occur to anyone? Drumming this into the ground, constantly bringing it up, keeping it bouncing in the air like a balloon is part of the problem. a big part of the problem that perpetuates this air around us all. So the first thing is to get rid of that. You deal with each single incident as a single incident. Are there people out there who are prejudiced, who are, racially motivated for this or that? There are, and it goes on both sides of the damn fence. Not one. Both sides. Take the responsibility. Now, if we would look at it as individual things and not a big giant conspiracy issue or whatever else, then some of this would stop. This would slowly start to come to an end as this being the main focus. You want to claim that that is the case, and a lot of people want to claim that that's the case because they see more benefit about it, or they get 15 minutes of fame, or whatever the case may be, or they can stir up trouble, or they can... There's a lot of issues as to why that it occurs. That doesn't make it true, and it sure as hell doesn't make it right. The 5 officers in Dallas were ambushed, attacked, blindsided. Yet, during all of that, the officers that were there did everything they could to protect the people who were protesting. But you know what? I don't see a hell of a lot about that. I don't hear a lot about that. I don't see banners and signs stating those things. This is insane. One interview I saw in one of the states where one of the police shootings took place, were people that were screaming and yelling, and they were talking about, well, we're all the black men and all the black people are targets, and you hang us from the tree and you haven't changed the law. Give me a damn break. We're so far beyond that. That's not what it is now. You want to keep perpetuating that kind of speech and talking and thinking. You want to drive that into it, then you'll keep it going. And for some people, that's what they want. Gives them more purpose in life. What's really behind a lot of this? What's really behind it? A lot of things that are behind this are societal. It's problems with the entire country. It's problems with the economy. It's problem with jobs. It's problem with raising each generation in the best way to do the best themselves and for everyone else. To be the best person they can be. I don't judge a person by the color of their skin or their religion. I judge them by who they are, who they act like. What do they act like? You're either nice and friendly and fair, or you're not. Mental health issues are there. Addiction issues exist and are there. Poverty is there. Loss of hope of a decent life is there. All these are contributing factors to all the problems. But you can't put that responsibility on each individual, period. It's everything from the government all the way up to the highest level on down. Those are the issues, those are the problems, and those are the things that should be being addressed. And as long as we ignore those issues and we don't address these things, these situations will continue to occur. As long as people have a personal interest of some type to instigate these things, which is usually an individual goal, to incite people to inflame things. It's usually more about themselves. It's more about a way of venting steam that for things that you perceive are a certain way when they probably aren't even that way. Most of the very successful black people that I know were successful because they didn't see things that way, because they just did the best they could in what they were doing and how they were going, and they didn't entertain these ideas like this. And they were successful because they simply worked for it and they didn't spend their time dwelling in those areas. That's the real truth of it. That's what matters. It's just the way it is. But we have all these other people that think differently. It's a very sad, troubling situation all the way around. And it needs to stop. Enough is enough. You idiots out there who truly believe that and have no faith in anything, why are you even still here if this is your life? You people with the Black Lives Matter movement, and yes, I'm one of those who firmly believes in all lives matter. All lives. When you run around with Black Lives Matter, and that's the only part of it on there, you're not being a part of the country as a whole. You're wanting to signify and single out only one group. Only one. That's not in your best interest, or is it in anyone else's best interest. All lives matter. Period. There is no change to that. And that's how everyone should look at it. Everyone. That's the real point. That lives matter. Human lives matter. That's the way it is. But we have people with other agendas. But if the Black Lives Matter movement really cared about black lives, why in the hell are they not raising hell, protesting, doing something more against black-on-black murders, black-on-black overdoses from drug dealers? Why is that not part of the real theme? Because there are far more blacks that are dying at the hands of other blacks. Drug dealers, gangs, etc. Why are they not intervening with these? When the numbers are so much higher, it's so much more detrimental, so much more damaging. But they are doing nothing, really, towards those efforts. Why? Ask yourself, why are they not? Because it's not national news media. It's not newsworthy. It's not adversarial enough. It would be, accusing some of those on your side of being in the wrong, and you don't want to do that. At least not to the point that you do when you protest this way about police officer killings and shootings. Don't get me wrong. If they're wrong and they're investigated, they're wrong, they will be found out. Their life will be ruined. They will be sentenced. They will be sentenced to life in prison and lose everything, just as anyone else would. The society around, I heard a deputy that told me last week about an incident where he was down in a part of the county where there were more African Americans living there than white people in this one neighborhood. And there were some really young kids out, bicycles, and they were hanging out in this area. It was very, very late at night. pulled up, rolled down the window, spoke to them, said, "It's really kind of late, guys. It's not a good idea to be out here on the street." They told him it was none of his business. He pulled a little bit further down and he parked his car, was doing some paperwork. The same group of young boys came by, and as they went by him, they stuck their hand out in the form of a gun and acted like they pulled off a shot at him. What does that tell you? That's another one of the many issues and problems. If they grow up with this kind of mentality, if they're constantly being told who the enemy is, even if they're not the enemy, they will believe it. That's the same thing that happens in communist countries, but it's the government that's carrying it out, not the individuals as much. It's time to stop all this. It's time for things to come together in a better way. Put the responsibilities where they belong and who they belong with. Let's fix the problems of the economy. Let's fix the problem of jobs. Let's fix the problems of the homeless. Let's fix the problems of the starving. Let's fix the problems of the frustration and hopelessness that so many people in this country right now are experiencing and feeling. Lost, afraid. We're fighting terrorism, for God's sake, in our own country. Terrorism. We should be banded together, not apart. And though I doubt that this will help much, just my little broadcast, my opinions, my thoughts, my ideas, and I doubt that that's the case, but if it helps one along to be better, to do better, to see better, think better, feel better, then I'm really glad for that. It's not my intent to make people feel bad. It's my intent to try to help and encourage to go in the right directions, a better direction. As I said, there's many ills that are plaguing our society and our culture. So many, it's hard to name them all. Even mass media, the news itself, even mass media, the shows we watch, the movies we watch, the violent video games that desensitize our young coming up. It does matter there. It does make a difference. It does have an effect, especially over a long period of time. And once you set certain things in motion, to recover from them if they're in the wrong direction takes even longer. I hope this touches some people, and I hope they understand the meaning, and I hope they can see more clearly, and I hope that we can all do better for the future. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country to have a future for. This is Dr. Marco again, hoping you have a good night.